Welcome back. I'm Michael Bull, and this is America's Commercial Real Estate Show. Today we're talking about zoning for fun and for profit. I want to ask you if you've checked out buildout.com. If you're in commercial brokerage, it's an incredible system to do packages, put your properties online. It syndicates to other marketing sites. Check it out at buildout.com. Well, my guest today is Daryl Chapman, and he's a broker with Bull Realty. He helps buyers and sellers with selling their properties and buying properties for development. And he deals with a lot of zoning. Daryl, thanks for joining us in Studio One.
I'm glad to be a part of the show, Michael.
Well, Daryl, let's talk about 4 tips for sellers. So if you're a seller or representing a seller, and you're selling commercial real estate or land or property's got to be rezoned, or a residential development land needs to be rezoned, let's talk about some tips. 4 tips. Number 1.
I think the most important thing a property owner can do is make sure you have an experienced and diligent agent on your side to help you through this process. It can often be very long, complicated, and frustrating, and having an experienced agent involved will make sure that you understand the process and you're not in the dark and don't know what's going on.
Yeah. All right. And anybody else on the team is a seller that you need, or is that pretty much, I guess you need a lawyer to kind of look over things?
We should always have an attorney to review any legal document that you're looking at. Having an agent or a broker read it for you just simply isn't enough.
Right.
You can get a lot of good feedback and advice from them, but you should have a lawyer review it.
Okay. Tip number 2.
Tip number 2, a seller often will accept a contract to sell their property, and they'll kind of forget about it, and they'll assume that the buyer and his team are doing everything they're supposed to be doing. So you have to be involved in the process. You have to have your agent involved in the process. If you're not involved in the process, they could be doing absolutely nothing, or they could be doing something that will actually hurt you in the long run by getting something started on your property that they can't finish.
Right. So you need a bit of control if you can get it, right? To know, hey, you can zone it for this or that. If they start to zone it for something that you think no one else would want, then you may need to step in and say, hey, I need some non-refundable money or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You have to be involved in the process.
Yeah. All right. So tip number 3.
Don't get on the wrong side of the decision makers down at the local government.
Don't make them mad.
Don't make them mad. These are
we've seen sellers do it.
We've seen sellers do that.
Yeah. Well, it gets so emotional.
It does. There's very few things in a person's life that's more important to them than their property. Their family maybe, but emotions tend to run high. If you hear something you don't like, the best thing to do is just walk away, regroup, think about your response, and come back at them with maybe a different approach that can get these people on your side. If you make them mad, they'll tend to just shut down and not help you at all.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know that your purchaser has the right people that can handle that emotionally, right? I think one of the things I've seen you do is require a purchaser, when you're representing the seller, that, hey, who are you using? What attorney are you using for the zoning? What architect? So that you know they're connected and can get it done?
That's the advice I give everyone.
Yeah.
Find out who is well respected in that community, who is well liked. Don't pick the guy that's known for going in there and creating a controversy. Sometimes when residents or local authorities see that person's involved, they'll just assume the worst.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, number 4 tip for a seller when involved in a rezoning issue.
Well, like I said before, the zoning process can be very lengthy.
Yeah.
And if your contract does not allow for or require the seller or the purchaser to bring you the deliverables that they're going out to get, survey, site plan, any applications that they're turning in to the county or the city, that can be a problem. Every contract should have a timeline, and you get that timeline from the purchaser. If they want a year and you tell them, I don't really want to tie it up for a year, but like your project. Tell me more. Tell me how you're going to go through this process. If they say, well, the first 2 months we'll be getting a survey and a site plan done, then it needs to be in the contract. After 2 months, you'll supply me with the survey. After another month, you'll supply me with the site plan. I'll get the benefit of whatever you create so that I can add value for my property, even though you may not close.
Right, well, and that's good. And also, like you said, it keeps the purchaser kind of, hey, this is what I'm going to do. I have a plan. I know the dates to apply. I know how long it takes to get what I need deliverables-wise. And to prove to you that I'm online, that I'm serious, I'm going to provide them to you, Mr. Seller, in this timeline. So what else does the seller need in their contract so that it has some teeth if they don't deliver it?
Well, there needs to be recourse for the seller. And if they don't deliver their deliverables, their third-party reports and things like that, in the timeline agreed to in the contract, the seller needs to have the option to terminate the contract, have use of what he has received up to that point, or anything that the purchaser has created, and then he can give the purchaser, the option to have their earnest money back, or to stay in the contract with more earnest money, possibly.
Yeah. Oh, that makes a lot of sense. Now, you've probably heard some interesting things said at some of these zoning meetings and things. You share at least one with us.
Well, the more interesting things aren't typically said at the meetings.
Okay.
Anyone who thinks that these zoning hearings or meetings or public forums are where the decision makers actually make their decision, that's a common misconception. 90% of the time, the decision's well thought out and made before the public ever hears about it. And during those conversations, these casual conversations, I overheard a certain local authority in Alpharetta say during a multifamily apartment application process, we have a great place for apartments. It's called Roswell.
Another city.
Another city, neighboring city.
Yeah.
So that can be a clue to the mindset of some of the people who are making these decisions.
Yeah.
What they like and what they don't like.
Yeah, I think that's great. It's funny what you can hear in these zoning meetings, in these neighborhood meetings, and what people will say. Daryl, thanks for joining us today. We appreciate you being on the show.
It was great being here. I'd love to come back.
And stay with us. We're going to have some more interesting things that you're going to hear that have been said at zoning meetings right after this short break. Stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show.